Penny, what have you been called too much of in a list for me?
Too much, too loud, too many questions, too humorous, too serious, too intelligent, too questioning, too demanding, expecting too much, requesting too much, laughing too much, crying too much, dancing too much, singing too much, being quiet too much, complaining too much, speaking out too much, finding out things too much, not giving up, caring too much, listening too much, speaking too much, being too loud, being too quiet, being too reflective, thinking too much, swearing too much, frequently, digging around too much, seeking the truth too much, challenging too much, wanting too much time on my own, travelling too much, having too many opinions, being too involved in politics, being too political, connecting things together too much, just always questioning or always seeking too much, as if that's wrong. I think that's about it.
Thank you. That's great. And if you could
being too determined, too persistent, too deliberate, too alert, too sensitive, too emotional. How could I forget these ones? Too empathetic, too internal, too out there.
So interesting, it's like one and the other.
I know. It's like
you can't win.
You can't win. Yeah. Well, I'm going to say the one when I was about 3.5, and the two pieces of saying I want and being told I want never gets, and by my mother, and I was absolutely indignant. I can remember it. I was really, really indignant. That's another two. I get too indignant and too angry and too sad. And I just said, I want a wee wee. And her response was, you just want too much. You just want too much. You're always. And on another occasion, you ask too many questions. Why do you ask too many? Why do you keep asking questions? And again, I remember thinking, because I have to. And I said it. Instantly, it was because I have to. And on that occasion, it was like, well, why wouldn't I? So I was just bemused. On later occasions, too much, being too determined and too unwilling to shut up. I remember at a meeting and getting back to work and being told that someone had said I was too determined, too persistent on this particular conversation and too aggressive. And I remember thinking, they haven't seen aggressive, they haven't seen determined. I come from the northeast, that's not aggressive and determined, but to them it was. And I was shocked. I was like really shocked, and the effect on me was I did try to rein in or to express things differently, but I felt like I felt shut down, and I found it really hard. And in intimate relationships being told, that's too much, you're being too loud, tone it down. Really feeling unnerved because I was only being me. So I could think of being at a friend's party and just having great fun dancing and discovering that I loved dancing again, and then being told you shouldn't have done that, it's too much, you were too exhibitionist. There's one I hadn't thought of. And I just felt crushed, and embarrassed, as if I'd kind of shown myself up. So I tended not to dance when that person was around, and had to have some sort of encouragement afterwards if I was with other friends. And I'm still getting over that. And I've gone to a dance group in order to, and I'm loving it.
That's great.
So that was another one. That was a specific. Doing it to myself when two of us were going to do a demonstration coaching in front of in a training event, and the person who was facilitating, he'd asked who would come and do this. So I pushed myself. I'm going to do this. I want to do this. And this other person got up as well, and we sat down. He said, right, who wants to coach first and who wants to? And I knew I wanted to coach first. And I went, literally, I remember going forward and pulling myself back and realising that I had done that because of this constant stream of messages in my head that you always have to be in, you always have to show off, you always have to be in the front. And I didn't think I did. And I actually ended up having that coaching on that particular thing because I realised that I'd stopped myself doing things so often in life. And I can't think of a time when I actually went over that. And it was way back at university, and we were having elections for being secretary on the events committee or something like that. And someone was saying, oh, well, you know, my friend beside me would be good. And I remember thinking, I'd like to do that. And I looked around, and in the end, I just said, I'd like to do that. And they said, oh, Penny, you'd be really good. We never thought of you. And it was because I got so used to feeling I was being told I was too much.
Yeah.
That they weren't seeing me, and I had to push myself. And I remember when we did the Emily Inspires, the centenary for Emily Davison, and we'd had this incredible, we had the service marking her funeral. Everything worked out. It was all on the parallel weekend to when she'd actually been buried. And this was in the church that she's buried in, the churchyard. And we came out, and the church was full, and there was overspill in the graveyard. We had sound systems and everything, and went up to her grave and put flowers on. And I was speaking and being photographed, and I heard someone say to my then husband, "You must be so proud of Penny." And he turned round and said, "She's just too much. I'll be so glad when this is over and I get her back." And I felt like somebody had pricked me, and I was a balloon just going down like that. I was so upset and couldn't show it, but it really hurt. And yeah,
that's horrible.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Why did he feel like he needed to take that away from you?
Yeah.
The fear, like you were saying before.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you a question about your grandmothers. Would you like to talk about them at all?
Yes.
I was going to ask you about sort of almost their journey of maybe, I don't know, of maybe being too much and, you know, geographically moved, and whether that you know, how their story, you know, is in your life. And maybe they weren't too much, I don't know, but like I'm just projecting the project on it. But, you know, yeah.
So I often say that I'll start with a particular grandma, and I often say that she was a great role model for me about not having children, because she was my step-grandma. And I remember her visiting me in a children's home before I even remember my mother. And she was a very shy woman, and she taught me a lot about being woman. And I think without her in my life, I wouldn't have held so many of the things, because she was so encouraging. Well, my blood grandmas, so on the maternal side, Gladys, who was my granddad, Nancy, so Grandma Nancy was the step-grandma, and Gladys was Granddad's first wife, and they had my mother. They only had the one child. And I don't know the full story. I was told when I was probably 9 or 10 that she had, I knew she died, and then I was told she'd been in St George's, which is one of the big mental hospitals in Northumberland. And over the years, people said things that led me to think that she'd taken her own life. I actually think, I then discovered, because my parents fell out with lots of people, very complicated, but then I met relatives when I was older who remembered Gladys, and they used to, there were three in particular, who said, "You're so like her." She was musical, she was intelligent, she was articulate, she'd got a really good sense of humour. And I began to wonder, you know, was this a woman who emotionally got unstable? Because I think my granddad was a bit of a challenge, and the times as well. I mean, in the 20s, the strikes, the depression and everything. Granddad was a miner, and I suspect my mother was also told she was too much, which was why she was so harsh on me. She was very glamorous and always told me I wasn't, and wasn't good enough on that front. You know, retrospectively, you know, looking at it now, I think she probably also was told she was too much. So Gladys, and I'm named after her, so I was actually given her name. So I wonder if I know Grandad was away and was brought back to sign the papers to put her into, you know, to section her, to put her into the asylum, as it was called then, and that she was hysterical. And I wonder, you know, if that was just emotionally too much. The other grandma, my dad's mother, I was always told she was dead. When I was about 19, I was told that she had been alive, and she'd been in St Nicholas's, which was the big mental hospital in Newcastle, and was definitely given to understand that she died. And the impact of that on me, it wasn't actually till I was in my 30s and I was working with a particular homeopath, and I put two things together. And I suddenly thought, God, both my grandmothers, I'm in for it. You know, the way I looked at it at that point was they'd both been certified, they'd both been put into asylums. So, you know, what was going to happen to me? I've turned that around completely, by the way, because when I was 48, I'd never seen a photograph of that grandma, only seen one of the other one. And I came across a photo, and I said, "Oh," to the person I was with, that's Grandma, that's Gladys." And I was told, "No, it's not Gladys, it's your dad's mother." And I said, "Oh, I've never seen a photo of her before." And she was gorgeous. She was also very personable. You know, she was beautiful. You know, she had real stature. And And I said, well, she died a long time ago. And back came the answer was, no, she died this year. And this was in 1998. And I just felt like I'd been literally kicked in the stomach. Well, in the here, you know, in the solar plexus. I felt sick, and I felt angry. I was so angry. I've been very upset since, because I realised that both of those women had their voices taken away, their lives taken away, and I feel I was deprived. And I thought, how many women has this happened to? I mean, I was speaking to a woman, I was doing something on Saturday, and a woman came up to me afterwards, and she said, me and my friend are both bipolar. And she said, if we'd been alive then, we would have been in those mental institutions. And they're right. And what I could piece together, my dad was the youngest of 4, and that granddad he drank a lot, he gambled a lot, I think he had other women, and I think she had postnatal depression. So in about 1930, she was 1929, 1930, she was put into a mental institution, drugged up to the eyeballs apparently, and was there until the mid-1990s, when she was moved into a convent nursing home. And I thought, that was over the years when that all settled in, I realised that's why I've always fought for women to have a voice. I didn't know these stories, but they were in me.
Yeah.
And in fact, when I left home at 18, and I told my parents I wasn't going home, and they threatened to get the police on me and all sorts. It was very, very scary.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, if I go home, I'll end up in a mental institution. And at that point, I didn't know.
Really?
I'd known about Gladys, but I didn't know about my other grandma.
No.
And afterwards, I thought, when I did find out, I thought, well, no wonder I thought that, because it was somewhere in the air.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah.
It's funny what we pick up subconsciously is kids
Absolutely.
and things that's passed down to us through our and sort of we ended up knowing them
and not knowing that not knowing that we know them.
Yeah.
So
So how have you turned it around?
Well, now, because of my utter determination that I tell their stories.
Yeah.
When I'm going to do something, I do get scared. And I've learnt how to handle that. I mean, over the years, of course you develop it, and sometimes it catches me unawares, and always this is for the sake of all the women whose voices were never heard. And if I ever think I hear that too much, I just go, no, this is not too much. And it's been really, really liberating. I've had so many conversations recently along the lines of, it is all interconnected, it is all systemic, and it comes out in individuals, and I will not put up with it, and I will not shut up about it, and I will stand in rooms, or I'll do whatever it takes. I use it as a prod to get me over the nerves sometimes. In the 90s, I did a lot of retreats with a shaman.
Oh, wow.
And one of the things, the particular shaman, she'd looked at religions and traditions and cultures universally, and it's fascinating how there are those repercussions and echoes. And I always had this idea that the past, present, future thing has always been very strong for me. And in traditional cultures, like the First Nation cultures, there's a whole thing about 7 generations, that you take decisions for the next 7 generations ahead of you, and you're reaping the experiences of the 7 generations behind you, before you. And I've always felt that part of my job being here is actually healing my family's history, particularly the women.
Yeah.
And actually doing that by not having children, because I'm impacting more children than by having my own. And as part of that, we did a regret. Well, we did a journeying back through our grandmother's not lives. You stepped back into your mother and then your grandmother and then that great grandmother and go back 7. And I found myself on the outer island of Lewis and Uig Bay.
Wow.
And with this, I've never written a song in my life, but these 4 lines came as a song. And it's been with me ever since.
So taking each of your too much is that you've been told,
Mm-hmm.
how are they, what do you love about them inside yourself? How are they your power? How have they helped you in your life or manifested in your life? And how have they helped other people?
I'll start with the last one, how they've helped other people. I've realised that they really help other people because it's liberating for them. And they think, oh, I can. Mm-hmm. I don't have to. Mm-hmm. And there are other people who think and feel and act like this. It's not just me. So, and that, I get some surprises when people come and say, because of you. And I go, oh, right. Mm. And you said, and I go, did I? So that's very much, and I like that. And it's nice that that happens across different age groups. So my neighbour's little girl decided to stand for they have a school council and they've got a class president and a vice president, and she decided to stand for vice president because of me, which I thought was hilarious. It was brilliant.
That's amazing.
So I'm quite happy with that, if that's what it does for others. What was the other one?
What do you love about your too muches, or
what do I love about it?
Or that energy, that power? How are they your powers? And you could translate it into a power rather than the supposed negative.
Yeah, well, I think it is a power because it's an energy that gives reason and gives purpose, and just a delight in living, just absolutely. And I think of the things like the humour and the outrageousness, then that takes people to places they wouldn't otherwise go. And so in my workshops or in conversations or in coaching, if I use those things, then when I call on that energy, people go to places that they wouldn't otherwise go to. And it also helps because I know the depth of those that can take me to. So I'm not scared of anyone else's emotion. So if I get someone, I get men saying, I'm feeling a bit emotional. What they mean is they want to cry. And so I can name it. And people can cry with me.
Yeah.
Or they can laugh with me. Or they can really be challenged because they can get a little bit of a sort of false sense of security because I'm very empathic and I use my intuition a lot, and my intuition comes from the same root.
Yeah.
But very often my bandwidth allows their bandwidth to expand, and therefore they find out things about themselves that they didn't know. It means I don't judge. I mean, I do sometimes because I'm human, of course I do. It means I access not judging. So the whole all conversations around gender, for instance, has never occurred to me, and I've got friends across the spectrum, and so I get people saying, "I've never said this before," and it's sacred. It's sacred, so it becomes sacred. And I like the fun of it. I like the piece that's got the fun and the humour. It's just so liberating. And people actually access emotions. That's what it was. People access emotions through humour that they often don't get to in any other way.
Yeah.
So it's like a really good comedian can have you. And I've got a friend who died last year who could have you absolutely wetting yourself with laughter. He's a singer-songwriter. 1 second and the next minute you'd be right in tears. because it just, it just pushed you into an experience.
That's amazing. It's a gift. And
Yeah.
do you have that humour as well?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I use it much more than I ever used to. I kind of like, allow myself now.
Yeah. If you had to give advice to people that were called too much, or advice to yourself when you were younger, when you're called too much, what would you can pick either, but what would you say?
I think it would be the same thing. Believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. Somebody said it to me and I didn't. Because I didn't really know what he was meaning. He was saying that when I went into a room, everybody knew, everyone experienced me, and it was just like, that's too much, that's too much. And I think it would be trust yourself, believe in yourself. You are special. Everybody is.
Say.
I'll see if I can do the little thing I got on the journeying.
Yeah.
I haven't sung it for a while. Woman of heart, light of my soul, light is my grace, my gift and my joy. Listen to me beyond the far seas. Joy is my heart, its gift sets you free.